Hey everybody, it's Mallory again with a video for Group Project 4 of Scotland 2's Linguistics 3220 assignment. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about a summarization and critique from an article that we read and analyzed about class, gender, and rhoticity. This particular article is titled Class, Gender, and Rhoticity, the Social Stratification of Non-Prevocalic R in Edinburgh Speech, and Edinburgh is in Scotland. This paper presents an auditory and acoustic analysis of variation in non-prevocalic R among middle-aged adults from Edinburgh, Scotland. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what the article was about. And then I'm going to go into the main points and state some quotes as well. The first point that I would like to talk about is the different levels of classes that are going to be discussed. We go into a little bit more in regard to like the variations between class and gender and things like that, but the main focus is on class. So the three classes that we're going to focus on are EMC, which is established middle class, NMC, which is new middle class, and WC, which is working class. And the established middle class are those who are more educated and come from families who are educated. The new middle class are those who are more educated but come from families who are not educated. And the working class are those who work and do not receive education and come from non-educated families. These classifications are not perfect, and individuals can and often fall into categories of social mobility, whether that be upward mobility or downward mobility. A direct quote from the text, it says, social mobility is defined by a speaker's educational and occupational attainment compared with that of their parents. Okay, so sorry about that. Urban speech in Scotland's Central Belt, the most densely populated area of Scotland, which includes the urban centres of Edinburgh and Glasgow, is understood to be dominant in establishing the prestige forms of Scottish English, which leads me straight to point number 2, which is, although low rhoticity was seen as fashionable during the 19th century, high rhoticity is now seen as prestigious. However, of recent, slow-moving local sound change toward weaker rhoticity has been observed. Studies have reported that middle-class speech in Scotland is largely rhotic, favoring strongly rhotic alveolar and retroflexic approximate realizations. SSE, or Scottish Standard English, is argued to be positioned along two continua simultaneously. So the first continua is Scots and Scottish English, and then the second is standard varieties of SSE and Southern Standard British English. Working class speakers' approximates usually lack the strong rhotic quality that characterizes middle class speech. But studies conclude that while speakers remain largely rhotic overall, there is social stratification in the degree of strength of rhoticity, with greater derotization occurring in working class speech. Which leads me to point 3. Important factors interacting with social class in predicting the realization of non-prevocalic R. So the main two are age and gender, and education and occupation. Going into a little bit more detail of what puts people in each group, the working class group consists of speakers who left full-time education at age like 16 or younger and began work in blue-collar jobs such as construction or retail work, and whose parents had similar jobs. Whereas the established middle class speakers are university graduates who attended private schools in Edinburgh and went into professional or higher managerial occupations such as medicine, teaching, and academic research, and had parents who followed similar career paths. And then there is the new middle class group, which consists of speakers who have been upwardly mobile over the course of their life. These participants had parents fitting the working class criteria, but they are going to school and getting skilled professions. So I feel like that is good. The fourth point that I would like to make is that there are three key variants: strong rhoticity, de-rhoticization, and non-rhoticity. This is a quote. Lindau proposes that rhotics should be viewed as a family of interrelated sounds with some overlapping phonetic characteristics, but with no single unifying feature. And this will make a little bit more sense as we get into kind of the conclusion that the article made, that even though all of these classifications can be made between variations in different classes, things kind of blend a little bit because people are individual and come from completely different circumstances. Even if there are regional similarities or class similarities, people experience different things. In an attempt, so this is continuing with what I just said, in an attempt to classify variants of R in terms of perceived strength of rhoticity in urban Scotland, researchers propose a series of auditorily distinct R variants, correlating with strong and weak ends of what they call an auditory rhotic continuum. So this is probably the most important part because it goes into the topic of the article in a more logical way, I guess you could say. But laying it out as a continuum is kind of more of an idea than a strict by-the-book thing, because a lot of researchers are realizing that the more strict in trying to define it one way or the other they are, the harder it is for people to understand. So they're getting more in depth into rhoticity based on like individuals and things like that. So the classifications along the continuum include the strong end, which is rhotic taps and trills, and the weak end, which is non-rhoticity and de-rhoticization. And then in the middle, intermediate variants are like approximants and schwas. So for rhotic taps and trills, a tap is a reduced stop consonant. Although infrequent, the highest proportion of tap and trill variants is found in working class speakers, especially men, which is weird and unusual. And they talk about this a lot because usually the working class speakers are the ones who are more non-rhotic, and especially the men. And they were surprised to see that new middle class women and working class women were both leaning towards being rhotic. And so on the other end, working class men are non-rhotic. However, even in working class, they're seeing a lot more rhotic speakers, which is not typically what they expected, but it's still there. So that goes back to the point of every rhotic versus non-rhotic speaker being completely individualistic. And then, okay, so other acoustic features reported to distinguish dirhotic tokens from non-rhotic tokens include the presence of frication or devoicing. The results indicate that class, but not gender, is a significant predictor of the presence of frication. New middle class speakers consistently show the highest rate of rhoticity in the corpus, avoiding both the de-rhoticization that increasingly characterizes WC urban Scottish speech and the variable non-rhoticity that has been attested for middle class speakers. The next quote that I would like to add is, may contribute to their linguistic behavior, it is important to acknowledge that they also create and manage their identity through their language. There is a part in the article where Becker proposes that working class speakers can actively create and change social meaning through selective use of non-rhoticity. And I think that just goes along continuing to prove their largest argument, which is that although weakly rhotic variants are said to occur mostly in working class speech, with middle class speech characterized by strong rhoticity, the results of the current study complicate the notion of a socially stratified rhotic continuum. The highest rates of use of the strongly rhotic tap and trill variants, which are situated at the opposite end of the auditory rhotic spectrum. Therefore, working class men who are known to have low R rhoticity are equally using taps as they are being non-rhotic, proving that rhoticity can be based on class but is genuinely situational. And then two last quotes kind of to close and to wrap up these points and of the article. Number one, these two speaker groups support Kuplin's assertion that vernacularization and standardization are competing processes that can operate simultaneously in a given speech community. And the second quote just supports it. It says, by understanding socioeconomic status as fluid and changeable across the lifespan, we come closer to a more accurate understanding of how individuals construct social class identity and therefore better models of its relationship to linguistic variation. Guys, this article just basically, linguistically basically proves what we're seeing all over the world today, and it's that people can't be put into a category. We're all based on individual experiences that, even if we're similar to someone else, make us completely one of a kind. And this is basically just saying that, but on what levels people pronounce R or don't pronounce R. And that is it for this video. If you guys have any questions, please post your comments below, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks. Bye.